My goodness.
It's not very often that we're both in tears, Bennie. Go on. What do you want to share?
I was sat listening, and the wonderful thing, the thing I appreciate about Harry is not just his honesty and authenticity, but he's actually a very, really beautiful speaker.
Yes.
And that I was absolutely wrapped, listening to that tale and feeling the highs and the lows in that. And it's not, I'm not a particularly emotional person, so to have me
I
welling
always
up.
cry. You don't
You
usually
always
cry.
cry. I don't cry. But I was crying. And, I just want to say thank you to him, because it is really, really brave in a culture that we live in at the moment to talk about being transgender. We know that the media is hostile. We know that there are hostile groups out there. And the hope that comes out of Harry's story, not just in terms of how people have treated him, but how his own approach is so buoyant, recognizing the lows, recognizing that there is still so much to be celebrated. And honestly, I had a massive lump in my throat. But all of our speakers have had impact today, and I'm just so grateful to them.
Yeah, and I think Harry really embodied what Lindsay said about the power of stories to speak to people's hearts and minds, and that's where the empathy is formed. And I was just thinking about all the threads between the 12 different speakers today, who have all been wonderful, and really thinking about the impact they've demonstrated. And I put into the StreamYard chat earlier on that the two kind of words that I'm really taking away are this kind of active commitment, but also the accountability. I think several of the speakers have talked about accountability. And what comes up quite a lot is like, how do we measure the impact of the DEI work we're doing in our schools? What are your thoughts around that, Bennie? Like, how do we use qualitative and quantitative kind of like measurements to really see the impact of the work we're doing?
It's a really tricky one, because in some ways this work is about ideas being absorbed into the fabric of what's going on, and that's very hard to measure. How do you measure a culture and culture shift? And quite often you do that through the qualitative aspect of data collection. We talked about student voice right at the beginning, and actually that's the best place to start with this. If you're talking about the impact of your DEI work on the school, well, surely the students and what they see, and as it's been said, how they receive the curriculum, their support, the pastoral networks, that's what tells you that things are changing. I think all too often we get pulled into the trap of trying to measure it in numbers. And I'm still working out a way that could happen. Does it have an impact on results? Because that's what people will say. How does DEI work have an impact on the outcomes of children? Well, I say, actually, if you look at the outcomes for marginalized groups where there has been dips, there have been gaps, attendance, outcomes, progress for LGBT kids, for young carers, kids with mental health difficulties, when those things are dealt with in school, actually does have an impact on outcomes.
Yeah, and I can't remember who said it. Someone said it on Twitter recently, that we need to do Maslow before Bloom, that we can't do Bloom if Maslow isn't in place. And if we think about that third tier of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, once we meet physiological needs and safety needs, love and belonging sits there squarely in the middle, and we can't get to self-actualization and learning and potential being fulfilled if children don't feel safe and don't have that level of belonging. So thinking about how we gauge that impact of this work, it's going to take time. But I think going back to Bex and Anna, first thing, like the student voice really should be giving us that check. And I think the thing for us all to bear in mind is when we do this work well, we might see the data going backwards before it goes forwards. Because when a school becomes safer and more visible, we might have more referrals and disclosures around what's going wrong in the school. And that can be quite a difficult thing to navigate. So almost bracing ourselves for that, I think, is really key. So, Bennie, what's your pledge going to be based on our fantastic 12 speakers from today's event?
I mean, I could have 12 different pledges here,
No,
but
me too.
I think it's that commitment to storytelling. And I often come back to this because I genuinely believe that it makes this massive difference to people's mindsets. But I know, for example, I have relied on storytelling within the curriculum and around kind of subject knowledge, but I actually do want to have more speakers coming in, human beings who are embodiments of identities, actually talking to my students and making that possible now, and particularly post say post-COVID, now that we can get people back in again, that's going to be my commitment, I think.
Yeah, and mine was similar, actually, about making sure that we are centering the voices and the stories from the first person narrative and lived experience. So, I mean, I think a lot of people try to do this work sometimes in a third person perspective. And I think thinking about each school consciously curating a set of resources and stories and video clips and audio clips and quotes from students where you're actually making that connection to the human beings, I think is really, really important. Hence why Adele put me in contact this week with Hidayah, because I'm working with this school who is an Asian Muslim school and they've got loads of homophobia, but we couldn't find many visible role models of people who look like the girls to actually speak to them about why this work is important. So can we just invite all of you who have joined us for this morning to listen to our 12 brilliant speakers to make a commitment. You can either do that on Twitter, on YouTube, or just to yourself. Do a My Diverse Ed pledge. What is one thing you're going to take away from today's session as a commitment moving forwards? We'll stay online for just 60 seconds to see if anyone wants to pop them into the chat. It'd be lovely to see what your commitments and takeaways are going to be, please, as a result of today. Just giving people time to think and type in the chat. So listen to more stories. Fantastic, Sally. Thank you. Just wait for a couple more to come through.
Lots of people providing a lot of praise. Thank you for those people who are saying that this is useful. It always does help. You know, we put these events on and want to know that it's making a difference, and your feedback is really, really useful. If you're not putting a pledge onto the comments here, you can put your comments on Twitter or ask to join the community network, and you know, just keep in touch with us, because the conversation is flowing, you know, within the mighty network that we've got. It'd be good to see you there.
Yeah, so listening more, auditing student voice, thinking about staff CPD, thinking about the time we even create for these conversations and reflections, thinking about the stories we're amplifying, the representation of those stories, thinking about who we need to go and talk to as a result of just listening in today, who do we want to cascade it to, thinking about, Azaree's idea that if it's not in the policy, then what language are we using and how do we agree the language we're using? Absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for everybody who has joined us today as one of the 13 brilliant speakers in the 12 slots, but also to our audience. We know there's a lot of you who come to all of these events, so thank you for the support and the engagement, and we really look forward to hearing through our various social media platforms about the work and that continual impact. So go and enjoy the sunshine, and then go and enjoy your Saturday afternoons, but thank you very much everybody for joining us today for our 8th virtual event.